AI art is one of the most talked about, controversial and hot button topics in the art world today. But what exactly is it? How does it work? And is it a threat to you? Let's find out. So let's begin by answering the question, what is AI art? The term AI art simply refers to any piece of imagery or artwork that is created through the use of artificial intelligence systems, such as text-to-image models. A text-to-image model is a type of machine learning system, and what this means is it's a type of software that requires the user to input data, which is known as training data, so that the software's algorithm is able to use that data to make predictions, to recognize patterns, or in the case of AI art specifically, it's used to generate visual images based on its source material. The largest and most effective of these AI art models are the ones that are often trained on the largest sample of input data. But the issue and the controversy around AI art surrounds where this data that the developers input into their system comes from. And we're going to look into that a little bit later in the video. Before we dive into all of the controversy surrounding AI art, let's take a little bit of a look into the history of AI art to figure how we've got to the point where we are today. So the very earliest origins of the computer-generated artwork that we see today can be dated back as early as 1962 with the work of American psychologist Frank Rosenblatt. Rosenblatt is commonly referred to by people as the father of deep learning, and Frank worked extensively in all of the areas that will become cornerstones of the AI and deep learning systems that we know today. He published his research in 1962 in his book titled Principles of Neurodynamics, Perceptrons and the Theory of Brain Mechanisms. From the work of Frank Rosenblatt, Ukrainian-born Soviet mathematician Alexei Ivagnenko, who, much like his predecessor, is also referred to many people as the father of deep learning, created the first ever working learning algorithm in 1967. Ivagnenko pioneered the group method of data handling, otherwise known as GMDH, a technology that is used in many fields, including data mining and pattern recognition, two areas that will become very important talking points later on in this video. From Rosenblatt's theory to Ivagnenko's working model, the starting pistol was fired, and as the years rolled by, there were more advancements and more refinements made to the artificial intelligence world. So as AI pertains to art in general, the first notable AI art system to be completed was created by British-born artist Harold Cohen. Cohen created a system known as ARIN, which began development in the late 1960s at the University of California in San Diego, with the first finished model being created in 1972. This particular piece of software was created with the goal in mind to code the act of drawing. In its most primitive form, ARIN would create and generate black and white images that artist Cohen would then go in later and paint and colour by hand. But as it would grow and learn, it learned how to paint with colour, it began to introduce patterns, it started to generate images of rocks, then plants, and eventually followed by images of humans and interior spaces as well. In more recent times, the floodgates to AI art have well and truly opened, with the introduction of Deep Dream by Google in 2015, Artbreeder by Joel Simon in 2018, DALL-E by OpenAI in 2021, and Dream by Wombo in 2022. But perhaps the biggest step forward in the AI art world came with the release of Stable Diffusion in August 2022. Stable Diffusion made the technology much more accessible and free to use on personal devices all over the world, and its open source nature led to another surge in advancements by developers all over the world. So now that we've looked into a little bit of the history of AI art, we can look into how AI art works specifically. So how does a piece of software generate a piece of AI art? Well, in its most simplest form, a large database is created by a developer using text prompts and images. These images and prompts are generally collected through a process known as data mining, where images are scraped from an external source and input into its database. This external source is most frequently the internet. And when a user will input certain words or certain images into that software, it will search its database to find the relevant images and then generate a new image based off the data that the user has input. So where on the internet do these images input into these databases come from? Well, this is where the controversy surrounding AI art really comes into focus. The developers who produce these large databases take images from all over the web. And yes, this does include license-free, free-to-use, legal images. But it doesn't just end there. So before we jump into looking at where the images in these databases come from, let's take a little moment to analyse the public perception of AI art today. The main reason why AI art is such a hot topic at the moment is because it splits public opinion. Very few people seem to sit on the fence with this issue. To some, this is just the natural progression of the art world. To some people who see it this way, the advent of artificial intelligence in art is no different than the introduction of the camera or digital editing software. As a society, we rely deeply on our devices. Technology is as much a part of our lives as anything else, so one might ask the question, why is art so sacred that it shouldn't be subject to these advancements when every other facet of our life seems to be? The other side of the coin presents the argument that artificial intelligence removes the artistry from the art. It would argue that these are images that are created without talent, without meaning, and without love. And this is the view that I would take on the subject. An AI art system may be able to process billions of images and so learn how to create an image with a visually pleasing composition. It may have so much information in its databanks that it could create a very accurate representation of a scene. But just look at the sort of words that I'm using here. Process, data banks. These words are so rigid and so technical and so clinical, and they aren't the words that I would ever choose to associate with true creative expression. When I think of art, I think of words like beauty, words like creativity, words like passion. I think about phrases like communicating with your soul. To me, art is an inherently, uniquely human experience. But if only a lack of humanity was the main issue with AI art. But oh no, AI art hides a much darker secret. Now let's jump into what I consider to be the main problem with AI art. AI art has been proven to take images of art produced by artists for its databases. These are literally billions of images that are collected in these databases. The images were original, copyrighted intellectual property of the artists who created them, and they're taken without their knowledge and without their consent. For most creators, their art is their livelihood. It's the thing that puts food on their table. It is the thing that keeps a roof over their head, and they make a living out of the work that they put out into the world. We have all heard the stereotype of the starving artist. The idea that for hundreds of years, art was not a sustainable way for someone to earn a living. And this stereotype, although not true in its entirety, does have some historical precedent. Art is and was a very hard way for someone to make a comfortable living from. However, with the rise of social media and online marketing, artists and creators the world over began to benefit from having the potential to reach a global audience with their work, to sell original artwork, designs, and other products, to become entrepreneurs of their own online art business. But now, they are under threat from AI-generated art. Not only can these systems produce endless amounts of images in an instant, work that it would take a practicing artist hours, days, even weeks to create, but these systems are stealing the very artwork that these creators are producing in order to feed their algorithms. But surely you might think that there are areas of the art world, such as fine art or auction houses, that wouldn't give AI art the time of day. Illustrators and designers may be under threat from AI art, but not, for example, portrait painting, right? Wrong. Feast your eyes on this. This is an AI-generated portrait titled Edmund de Bellamy. And the reason that we are talking about this somewhat blurry, out of focus portrait of a man is because it was a portrait that gained widespread notoriety after being created by Paris art collective Obvious in 2018, when famous New York auction house Christie's announced that this would be the first ever piece of artificial intelligence art that it sold at auction. Staggeringly, this piece was given an estimated value of between $7,000 to $10,000. And before I continue, I already know what you're thinking. Surely people would see through the just absolute absurdity of this, and when it actually came for time for this piece of work to go under the hammer, no one would spend anywhere close to $10,000 on this. And you're right, they didn't. Edmund de Bellamy sold at Christie's New York auction house for $432,500. As with most new technologies, the law at present currently doesn't offer much protection for artists against the kind of issues that are raised by the advent of AI art. People are having their work stolen. They have the inability to opt out of having their own artwork fed into these data banks, and they're having their very own, often very personal self-expression swallowed up and used to feed the algorithm of a faceless company who is seeking to profit off of it. And that is why this is a subject that is talked so much about in the art world, and all over the globe you will see artists saying no to AI art. Make no mistake when I say this, and I don't say this to in any way sound sensationalist about the subject, but this new age of artists having the opportunity to flourish and thrive is under threat from mass-produced soulless forgery that is AI art. And if nothing is done, yes, your livelihood is at danger. So the next question that I want to look at is, what can you do as a working artist to try and protect your livelihood? Thankfully, the rise of AI art doesn't have to be the death of your future as a practicing artist. Well, thankfully, the rise of AI art does not have to be the death of your future as a practicing artist. The art community is a truly wonderful one, filled with people who are not only incredibly talented, but often very kind and very supportive of other creators. So what can you do to try and protect your livelihood? The first thing that you can do is to try and use your social media channels to foster a community. Interact and engage with your audience, be they other creators who love your work or other people from the general public that your work has helped draw to you. Take the time to reply to comments, comment on other people's work, have an open and honest dialogue with your followers. People who have a positive experience will be more likely to come back and to support you in whatever it is you choose to do next artistically. Another important thing to consider doing is to try and diversify your income streams. Don't rely simply on selling your artwork as an income. Branch out into other areas with your work. Use your artwork to create greetings cards, bookmarks, pins, stickers, notebooks. There is a huge market out there for people who are looking to buy fun and interesting and unique products, and you should absolutely look into repurposing some of your own artwork and your designs to as big a range of products as you're able to. As well as this, you could do what I'm trying to do, which is to create your own art channel here on YouTube, and hopefully one day you can build up enough of an audience and enough of a community that you'll have a channel that can be monetized and bring in sponsorships and even launching your own Patreon one day. Another thing that you must do to secure your future as an artist is to use the greatest weapon you have in your arsenal against AI art: your own individuality. Sprinkle a little bit of your soul, a little bit of your passion into everything that you create. You have something unique within you, something that no one else has. And when you create art from this place, AI art will always feel cold and empty and hollow by comparison. And lastly, the thing that I hope you do more than anything is to keep creating. Do not allow the hordes of soulless images masquerading as art diminish your love for your own self-expression. Don't become disillusioned and lay down your tools of creation. The only way that art wins is if artists stand up and fight for it. And if we all do this, we will always win. So I hope that you have all found our discussion today interesting and informative, and most of all, just keep putting your soul out there into the world. I hope you enjoy this new style of video that I have done here on the channel. And if you've taken anything away from today's video, please do hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. It really does help out everything that we're trying to do over here. And most of all, I hope you have a lovely day. See you again soon.